heritage, the foundation, the people that got us to where we are today. And that's something that I think about Alan, who has not been grow up here, hasn't been here for years. He's embraced Auburn and the Auburn culture and the traditions, and I so much appreciate him for that, and I know that he loves it. So our athletic director, Alan Ernie.
So thank you. War Eagle, everyone.
War Eagle.
So in the spirit of trying to give Bo as much time as we can possibly give him, I'm going to stick to the 5 B's. Be brief, brother. Be brief. Really, this is just an awesome time to be an Auburn Tiger. And most of us think about Auburn athletics and athletics departments in general as the front porch to any university, which is true. But once you get inside the house, then there's so much more to see and to experience. And what I was thinking about with regards to what these 3 men have meant for the athletics department and for the institution in particular, and listening to some of the conversations just even a few minutes ago, is that this is going to be a history lesson. And this is going to be about stories, about family, about pride. There might be, hopefully, not too many obscenities being shared because there's kids in the audience. But this is a time to celebrate legacy. This is a time to celebrate the past, to embrace our rich history and tradition, and to have some positive memories of 3 men who have helped shape not just Auburn University, not just Auburn athletics, but the entire state of Alabama and our country. So looking forward to everything, and look forward to going to class and learning a little history myself. War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you, Alan. So, 30-some odd years ago, I guess, late 80s, I was a graduate assistant coach. I think I saw Coach Witt here. Coach Witt was on the staff, and I remember being out at practice one day, and just so you know, Coach Guy watched practice from the tower. You never wanted him to come out of the tower because it wasn't good, and he had to come down out of the tower. But I remember looking up there one day and seeing this gentleman with him, and I didn't know who he was. I think I asked Coach Witt, "Who is that?" He's like, "That's Jimmy Ryan." At the time, I didn't know Jimmy, but I knew that if he was up in that tower with Coach Dye, number one, he was a very special person who was very special to Coach Dye and loved Auburn. And of course, after that, I got to know Jimmy and got to be friends with him and got to learn over the years the closeness of his friendship with Coach Dye. You know, the neat thing about Jimmy, in addition to being such good friends with Coach Dye, he got to play for Coach Jordan, one of our other honorees, when he was in school until he got injured. So today, Jimmy is representing our Board of Trustees. Jimmy also was recognized, I think, in 2018 by the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame as a distinguished American sportsman. So representing the Board of Trustees, Mr. Jimmy Ryan.
Thank you, Tim. I'll wait for about 5 minutes. Dr. Goose, Athletic Director Green, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to represent the Auburn Board of Trustees today as we honor men who epitomize what Auburn University represents and stands for. It can certainly be argued that this stadium wouldn't be here. Auburn football wouldn't have the national standing it has enjoyed for so many years without Dean Biff Aaron, Coach Ralph Schulcher, Coach Pat Dye. This arena behind us is filled with so many special memories. Sullivan DeVise, Bo Jackson, Sam Newton, Dick Six. Today is about more than wins and losses, highlight reels, and the miracle on the plane. Coach Dye once said, "I don't believe in miracles. I believe in character." That enabled them to accomplish things that their own generations viewed as miraculous. When Cliff Hare played on Auburn's very first football team in 1892, the home stadium was Great Field. not a stadium at all. It was a football field with some wooden bleachers, temporary bleachers, and could hold about 700 fans. As a result, most of all of our games were played on either a neutral site or in much larger facilities. In fact, our very first football game was played in Piedmont Park in Atlanta against the team we're going to face tomorrow, the University of Georgia. Two former graduate students at Johns Hopkins, classmates, fell in love with football while they were studying up there at Johns Hopkins University. George Petrie, a history professor here at Auburn, Charles Hurdy, chemistry professor at Georgia. They came home, decided they wanted to play football. They got some students, put together a team, corresponded with one another, and said, let's play. So the two newly formed teams met in February of 1892, and the South's first deep, oldest rivalry began. Auburn won that first game 10-0. And though Cliff Hare didn't score that day, he was the second team quarterback. The lessons he learned playing on that first team laid the foundation for future Auburn teams. The lessons of hard work, dedication, commitment to other people, those being able to him in future years, and those same lessons are part of the Auburn experience today. He would later become involved in athletics, academics, and policy making for the next 15 years. In addition to being dean of the chemistry department, he was chairman of the faculty athletic committee, and he was the very first president of the Southern Athletic Conference, which is what we know today as the Southeastern Conference, in 1932. First president. He believed in Auburn football, and he believed, as it is written on the award that bears his name, athletics makes men strong, study makes men wise, and character makes men great. He instilled this philosophy throughout our university. I believe that is why Coach Dye said, Alabama fans love Alabama football. Auburn people love Auburn. In 1939, finally got a stadium, the Auburn Stadium, that held 15,000 fans. Then after a major expansion in 1949, it had 21,000 fans and a new name, Cliff Hare Stadium. The very next season, Auburn lost every game it played. So when Coach Jordan took over as head coach in 1951, even the most die-hard fans among us probably couldn't have imagined an undefeated season and a national championship would soon be ours, or that the capacity of this stadium would triple as Coach Jordan turned Auburn into a national perennial power. In 1957, we won that national championship, and there were so many great players and stories associated with that team. Steve Smith, Jackie Burkett, Jimmy Phillips, Lloyd Nix, quarterback, Tommy Lorino, halfback. One of my favorite stories David Hauser tells about Coach Jordan involved Tommy Lorino. And it's not from the 57 season, but he speaks volumes about Coach Jordan and the kind of team that he was building. See, Tommy Lorino fumbled in that 1956 Tennessee game. On any other team on this out like that, could have ended a career even before it began. But Coach Jordan didn't lose confidence in Tommy Lorino, and he later became the best back in Auburn's history. Coach Jordan believed in Tommy Lorino, and Coach Jordan believed in Auburn. Often described as a gentleman coach and a quintessential Auburn man, Coach Jordan understood the university, its stories, its traditions, because he was an Auburn man. He understood the challenges we face, such as being thought of as the little brother in the state. You know what? He viewed that as motivating, not intimidating. He often said Goliath was a 40-point favorite to David. Coach Jordan brought us together, made us stronger. And as he put it, there's a closeness that all Auburn people feel. It's the Auburn spirit. That's what makes us Auburn family. Others may claim to be family, but it's a reality here. I believe if Coach Jordan were here today, he would say, as he so often did on Sunday afternoon on that television show Carl Stevens, "Are you so right, Carl?" Coach Jordan was my coach, and is the winningest coach in Auburn history. But I believe that his character and conduct off the field, the culture he created here, in addition to the athletic he helped build, that was the deciding factor in this stadium being named Jordan Hare Stadium in 1973. It was the first time in the country's history that a stadium had been named for an active coach. When Pat Dye became Auburn's head coach in 1981, he declared it would only take 60 minutes to beat Alabama. I don't know how many of us truly believed would have had an opportunity to beat them right here in Auburn. But because Coach Dye believed in Auburn, and he believed we deserved it, the Alabama game is played every other year right here in Jordan Hare Stadium.
There you go.
And since 2005, it's been played on Pat Dye Field. That would not happen had it not been for Pat Dye. Coach Dye played football at Georgia, but he very quickly became an Auburn man. The years between Coach Jordan's retirement in 1975, Coach Dye's arrival in 1981 had not been kind to us. But he brought the values back that Auburn people believe in, and a few victories too. The cornerstone of Pat Dye's coaching philosophy reflected in his words, quote, "I learned more from the championships I lost than the championships I won." Those words resonate with me because it's the same thing my father told me as a son when he said, "Son, you grow in the valley, not on the mountain." Coach Dye had a reputation for being tough and demanding, and he earned that reputation. But he had another side. He was as loyal a friend as anybody could ever ask for. And I was blessed to call him my friend. Pat Dye is one of the few men that I have ever truly respected. He was what every young boy dreamed he would be, what every old man wished he had. Pat Dye touched and changed lives, many lives, including mine. I was able to tell him before he passed away that we were going to erect a statue to him. He was overcome with emotion. He was very humble because he loved this university. Today it is fitting and proper that we dedicate statues to these three men who helped build this stadium, this football program, and whose character permeates every facet of this Auburn community. We honor and appreciate the legacy they have left us. However, let us never forget, a legacy is more than a memory. It is a call to action, a call to continue the work that they started. And we dedicate these statues. Let us rededicate ourselves to exhibiting the character and embodying the beliefs that were held by these great, great men. Their conviction was that any obstacle can be overcome. Any dream can become a reality. You only need to believe in Auburn. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. At this time, the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Bertram, is going to walk us through the presentation.
War Eagle.
Go!
A member of Auburn's first football team in 1892, Cliff Hare's influence at Auburn endures 130 years later. Cliff Hare served as the Dean of Auburn University's Chemistry Department as the first president of the Southern Athletic Conference, the precursor to the SEC. As a longtime chairman of Auburn's Faculty Athletic Committee, he worked for more than a half century to see Auburn's football program come to maturity. To honor his legacy, Auburn in 1949 named the Untitled football venue Cliff Hare Stadium. Each year, Auburn presents the Cliff Hare Award to a senior student athlete for academic and athletic success, as well as leadership, integrity, and courage. Now for remarks about Cliff Hare and his legacy at Auburn, please welcome Auburn Director of Athletics Emeritus, David Housen.
Thank you, David. They have a saying at West Point, the United States Military Academy at West Point, the long gray line. The long gray line. It is a symbolic continuum of humanity and spirit that binds all people who have went to West Point and served this country. All who went before, all who serve now, and all who will serve in the future. A continuum of humanity, spirit. That is why we're here today, to honor a continuum of Auburn. Cliff Hare, Coach Jordan, Coach. What about Cliff Hare? Who was he? All we know is bio. We know his bio by rote memory. Member of Auburn's first football team, outstanding student, longtime dean of School of Chemistry, faculty athletic chairman, more years than anybody can remember and count, president of the old Southern Conference, forerunner to not only the SEC, but also the ACC, when it stretched from the state of Virginia all the way to the Mississippi River. Sounds like we're kind of going back to that big conference. But what manner of man was he? When we have liked him, what did he like? What did he dislike? What made him mad? What gave him joy? 48 years ago this week, this stadium was named the Jordan Hare Stadium. At that time, I was editor of Auburn Football Illustrated, and so I went in to see Coach Jordan one afternoon, very naively. Said, Coach Jordan, did you ever know Cliff Hare? Do you remember anything about Cliff Hare? Coach Jordan said, David, Cliff Hare had as much influence on my life at Auburn and as a young coach and as a man, anybody I've ever known here at Auburn. He made a difference in my life. Trying to be a good writer, a good reporter for the Auburn football program, I asked him to tell me about Cliff Hare. These are a few of the things he said. And as I read these comments from Coach Jordan, I want you to think about in your mind's eye where we're talking about. Gay Street, the Presbyterian Church, the Methodist Church. From Coach Jordan. They called Cliff Hair Fessing Hair. He liked to sit on his front porch over in the shack in the evening and watch the sun set across Gay Street. Watch the sun set in the west over the stadium and one day bear his name. As Coach Jordan observed, these were good old days. Days when there weren't many cars. That tells you there it's a long time ago. When there weren't many cars, when there weren't many cars on Gay Street to disturb the solitude. Big oak trees creating a canopy over Gay Street. A lot of people in town from all walks of life came to see Fessing Hair. He knew a little bit about most everything. He had been on the city council, a member of the waterworks board, trustee at the Methodist Church, faculty member in API, and he was still an avid sportsman. He didn't get to hunt quail as much as he used to, but he never missed listening to an Auburn football game. Age never changed that. Folks who knew him well, Coach Jordan said, and Coach Jordan knew him well, knew that Fessing Hair loved his God, his son, and Auburn. They knew, too, that he hated stray cats, Alabama, missed extra points, and fumbled. And that house is long gone on Gay Street. In its place now in the Neal House in Dexter Arms, big efficiency apartments for Auburn students. The only thing left that would make me know there was once a stately old southern home there, way indention from the street to the sidewalk. The house is gone, and his hair is gone. His person is gone. But as William Saroyan wrote in that wonderful book, The Human Comedy, the person of a man may go, but the best part of him stays. It stays forever. Coach Jordan went on to talk about those meetings with Cliff. He said on Sunday afternoons he would drive up in his two-seat Studebaker, park under a big magnum tree in the hay yard, and spend the afternoon talking with Fessing on his front porch. Fessing was also always dressed up, usually in a nice seersucker suit. He smoked a pipe and occasionally a cigar. He liked to sit on a spring rocking chair, his visitor, Coach Jordan included, would send his rockers on the porch. As they talked, they could hear the ticking of a clock just inside the door. I think it's important for us to remember that these were hard, tough times for Coach Jordan. He and the rest of the assistant coaching staff went to fight World War II. And as was often the case, bands were blaring, people were slapping them on the back. Oh, great, you're going to fight for the country. We'll have a job waiting on you. When you come back, it'll be just like it always was. Well, they came back in 1945. Auburn had suspended football in 1943 and hired a new staff, a new coach and a new staff in 44. There was no football coaching job for Coach Jordan and the other staff. Auburn had not lived up to its promise. They gave him a menial job, that of head basketball coach. I don't know if you would consider a head basketball coach a meaningful job. What I read you're paying Coach Pearl, it ain't meaningful. Coach Jordan was really concerned about his future as a coach, about why nothing about his commitment. He would go to see Coach Cliff Hare 15 or 20 times a year, he said, sitting on that front porch. Why? What do I do? What's Auburn's future? And Cliff Hare gave Coach Sturgeon some of the best advice any Auburn person ever received. You can get mad running Auburn. Auburn's bigger than any of us. Bigger than you, bigger than me, bigger than any of us. Professor Harris said Auburn was here before we came, and Auburn will be here after we're gone. Don't ever get mad at Auburn, because Auburn is the most thing. They talked about a number of things. As I go back to my writing, I apologize for that. Coach Sturgeon said there were probably two lonely old men. Cliff Hare getting up and he, Coach Sturgeon wondering about his future. They talked about football, talked about what it was like at the Georgia game in 1892. Coach Sturgeon used to laugh and talk about Auburn, Georgia, as we're going to have tomorrow. He said Cliff Hare used to like to tell him about how he and Dr. Sanford, the man for whom Georgia Stadium is named, how after the Georgia game in Columbus, they would come back to Gay Street here in Auburn. And they'd bring all the gate receipts in a cigar box. And they would sit down at Cliff Hare's table and split the money. $1 for you, $1 for us. Coach Dooley, Alan, I don't think you'd do that tomorrow. You better have some damn big cigar box. Think about football too. Professor Hare had his own ideas about football. He went into a frenzy when Auburn fumbled, and he believed in a strong kicking game. There was no excuse for missing an extra point. Another thing that impressed Coach Sturgeon was Cliff Hare's gentlemanly demeanor, always a gentleman. On Sunday mornings, he would walk his wife up Gay Street to Fat Avenue and take her to the Presbyterian Church. And then he, being a loyal Methodist, would walk another block up to the Methodist Church on Gay Street and Magnolia Avenue and worship there. The gentlemanly demeanor of Cliff Hare had a great effect on Coach Sturgeon. Fast forward to 1957, another front porch, this time in Blythe, Georgia, at the home of Wayne Dye, Coach Dye's father. Coach Dye was in Blythe to recruit a young boy named Pat Dye. Pat came to the front porch, and Coach Sturgeon said, Pat, I want you to know, we want you to come to Auburn and play football. I know your brothers went to Georgia. I know you have a family tradition in Georgia. But it's important to me and to Auburn that you know we would like to have you at Auburn. There's always a place for you at Auburn. Coach Dye did go to Georgia and had a great career. But 24 years later, he came to Auburn as head coach and led us to our greatest year. The gentlemanly demeanor of Cliff Hare passed on to Coach Sturgeon. There's another man here who, though he rose to fame and glory at the University of Georgia, Coach Vince Dooley, he too is a son of Cliff Hare in many ways. The lessons Coach Sturgeon learned from Cliff Hare were very much evident in Coach Dooley. Gentleman coach, scholarly coach, love of history. No, you were never the head coach at Auburn, Coach, but there's no doubt in my mind that Cliff Hare would be honored and proud to have you as part of his bloodline. All of this being said, Cliff Harris' greatest contribution to Auburn was probably hanging our North Star, the way that leads us home. When we, as a people and as a school, when we wander, when we stray, when we forget who we are and what we are, all we have to do is to look at the example and legacy of Clifford and Roy Harris. His grandson will talk about it in more detail in a few minutes. But his legacy to Auburn is simply this: the belief and commitment to athletics make men strong, study makes men wise, but character makes men great.
Cliff Harris' grandson, Cliff Harris, now Unveil the statue.
It's incredible. Beautiful. I'll try to get us back on track, all right? I'm sure we will. This is going to be short, but it's emotional. I told my family last night we had a small gathering of 55 people for dinner. And I said, every time I talk about my grandfather, I choke up. So when I start blubbering, somebody jump up and yell Oregon just to break the tension. I'm going to be short, but you know, I'm fortunate every year to be part of the presentation of the Cliff Harris Award out on the field here at Jordan Hare Stadium. I think I remember it, but anyway. And we've talked a lot about what happens, what the Cliff Harris Award is all about. But just to remind you guys, it's given every year to the most outstanding male quarterback, athlete, because it comes from all different athletic endeavors. But it's the person who displays not only athleticism, but great scholarship and a great love and support for his fellow man. And the inscription on that award, I think, describes my grandfather better than anything else. The inscription says, as you've heard before, athletics make men strong, study makes men wise, and character makes men great. It's a perfect description of who he was. He was indeed the complete man. So on behalf of the 75 Cliff Harris descendants who are here today, and those who couldn't make it today, I just want to say how thrilled we are, how honored we are, and especially how truly humbled we are for this wonderful tribute. So thank you so, so much, and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
You'll notice underneath that left elbow, the famed cigar box or the receipts. A three-sport athlete in Auburn in the late 1920s and early 30s, Ralph Shug Jordan coached the Tigers for 25 seasons from 1951 to 1975. In 1957, he led Auburn to the program's first national championship. With 176 victories, Shug Jordan ranks first in Auburn history. An Army officer in World War II, Jordan landed at Utah Beach in Normandy, France on D-Day, receiving a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. To honor his contributions, Auburn in 1973 renamed its football facility Jordan Hare Stadium, making Coach Jordan the first active coach to have his team stadium named after him. Shug Jordan was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1982. As David Housel has written about Coach Jordan, soldier, patriot, coach, Auburn Maine. Now for remarks about Coach Jordan and his legacy at Auburn, please welcome one of his players, all SEC halfback, Terry Henley.
War Eagle. I hadn't had an applause like that since I scored the winning touchdown against Chattanooga. Listen, I'd like to thank the Jordan family for allowing me to be here this afternoon to say a few things about the greatest man I ever known. He was my buddy. He was special, but he would be so proud today for that y'all holding this event at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Because he had a saying, and especially if I was speaking, he never liked to see me before 1 o'clock because he said it messed up his lunch. Now, Coach Jordan and I had a great relationship, and it started at an early age when my sophomore year going into fall practice. We've been at practice 2 days. I'm playing behind a senior named Mickey Zofko. I go walking in Coach Jordan's office, and I tell him I want to talk to him. He said, sit down. He said, what do you want to talk about? I said, well, I'm better than Mickey Zofko, and I need to be starting. He leaned across that desk with that arm and pointed at me, and he said, you know, Terry, you are better than Mickey. But when we put you in the game, we know something exciting's fixing to happen. We just don't know if it's for our team or the other team. He said, we don't know if you're going to run 50 yards backwards, 50 yards sideways. We're not even sure you know all the plays, but I can tell you it's going to be exciting. So he said, what else can I do for you? I said, we answered it all in that one statement. The man, that's what we referred to him as, the man. And he was the man. You storm the beaches of Normandy, you get wounded, refuse care till the job is done. You know, you receive a Purple Heart, Bronze Star for his courage. He was the man. You know, no question about it. There was another coach across the state that once said that Coach Jordan had more courage in his little finger than he had in his whole body. That's the only thing that man and I ever agreed on. He wasn't. Allie, for years, another coach and I didn't get along too well. You know, he was the man, and he still is the man. You know, he brought us lots of things. He brought us the championship. He brought us Pat Sullivan, the Heisman Trophy winner 50 years ago. The number one question I'm often asked about Coach Jordan, was he tough? Was he mean? Well, let me just tell you just a couple of little stories. You get $300 worth of parking tickets and you get called into his office. And he sits you down and he said, how did you get $300 worth of parking tickets? I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, I certainly do. He said, you've been parking President Philpott's parking spot. I said, well, you know, I've been going out with his daughter a little bit, and she said he was going to be in Tallahassee this week, so I decided to use his parking spot. He called me in one day. He was waving a sheet of paper. He said, you know what this is? I said, have I got all A's? And he said, no. He said, this is a letter for Dean Cater, the Dean of Women. And she says that you tackled. Said, what are you doing? I said, well, all I wanted was her name. He said, can't you find a better way to do that? I heard him talking about fumbling. You might be sitting on the bench today if you fumble one time. Well, you're talking about being tough and mean and scared. I went to Grant Field and said 1971. And I don't do anything but lay the ball on the ground 3 times in the first half. We go into halftime 7-0 behind. And I put it on the ground. Coach Jordan said, offense, you're doing a wonderful job except for Terry. Defense, you're doing a wonderful job seeing the position Terry put you in. Now, there's a lot of children and a lot of preachers hear this today, and I can't say the other words that he used during this conversation that we had at halftime. The only thing I will tell you, they had to paint the dressing room after he got through because it blistered the paint off the wall. He was in Hutton before if Hutton never got thought about. But when he spoke to you, you better be listening. He didn't play with you. I got here as a freshman, went to practice the first day through those 12-foot gates out there, and I noticed they locked the gates behind me. And I said, now what's that about? About an hour into practice, I saw 3 guys climbing the fence to get out of there. And I realized, this wasn't going to be easy at all. Today they have clocks and horns and things to tell you how to shift and how long you can practice. We practiced until Coach Jordan got tired. When he got tired, we went in. He went around in a golf cart with Kenny Howard, the trainer. To see him driving around. And when he stopped that golf cart and he got out of it, you better play freeze tag, as all of you played as kids. You better stop exactly where you are. And if you're up in the air trying to catch a pass, you better find a way to grow wings, because he meant you to stop. And then he wanted to ask you a question, why are you doing this? Or why are you there? And he wanted an answer. And that's how it was. His other rule was you wore your helmet when you came onto the field at practice. He didn't want anybody's helmet off. He wanted them all on. I had my helmet off. Did have a little longer hair back then. He comes up to me and said, we got a problem here. I said, well, it's hot. He said, well, you pretend it's snowing and put your helmet back on. And by the way, you need a haircut. I have memorable talks and memorable speeches in the dressing room he gave, but I picked this one today. This one happened 50 years ago in the Georgia game. That we got there on Friday, we go out on the field, we put our shorts on, just kind of exercise a few minutes, and then we all went out in the end zone by the railroad track. We all in the end zone. Coach Jordan's standing there in the middle of us, looking around at that trestle, looking around at the bridge at the other end of the stadium. And then he looks at all of us and he says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, because I'm the meanest son of a gun alive. He said, and when we come out of that dressing room tomorrow, we're going to be the meanest people they've ever seen. Coach Dooley, I'm sorry, we won that game 35-20. And Pat Sullivan that day, people won the Heisman Trophy. Don't I get a applause for that? I don't remember lots of speaking engagements together. God, just lots of them. When he'd enter the room, he controlled the room. People would just touch him, see him. He knew everybody by name. It was unbelievable. His speeches, speeches with class, charm, and he had this Jack Diddy wit. He was just these one-liners that he would just really laughter out loud. But I'm going to tell you one little quick story. We were coming back from a speaking engagement that put us coming through Selma late at night. He tells me about his friend Buell Carter, who owned the drugstore there that they grew up together. He said he can take a nickel and squeeze 6 cents out of it. He's so tight. He said he's always been tight. He said now he has bought the Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise in Selma, Alabama. He said he's going to make a fortune in this. So we pull him going through Selma, and we pull in the Kentucky Fried Chicken. The door's locked. Coach Jordan knocks on the door, and here Mr. Carter comes to the door. They wait for me to come in the door. We go in, pleasantries and everything. Coach Jordan said, boy, it smells great in here. He said, sure, let me fix you a bucket of chicken. Let me fix you a bucket of chicken. Take home. He goes back there, comes back with this bucket of chicken. We get in the car, we headed out the road, and we get just about to Montgomery. And Coach Jordan says, that chicken smells good. I think I'm going to eat me a piece of it. He opens that top and he just starts cackling, just out loud. I said, what is it? He said, that man's so tight, they had nothing but necks and backs in his field. Listen, in the end, this statue will forever represent courage, strength, pride, and passion for Coach Jordan. Thank y'all. Junior, you want to come up?
That's him.
Well, that's amazing likeness. I can do what they do in the Senate. Like I said, I knew remainder of my time with Terry Henry. On behalf of the family, I'd just like to say how deeply appreciative we are of this recognition. They have to continue reign of the remaining board of trustees that might be here. Alvin Green, buyers on this project, Brant. It's everything I would vote for. A few things about my dad that really hadn't been said at one time. I'm not sure what else I could really add. But on a personal note, I had a conversation one time with Jackie Burkett, who played All-American. And he said, "What's the one thing you remember about your dad?" And that he said, "We'll probably also remember something about him as a football player, but what's the one thing you remember?" And I said, "If he ever asked you a question, you need to understand that he already knew the answer." And it was all about trust, and it was his way of kind of understanding more about who you were. And Jackie looked at me and he said, "That's exactly right." And he was telling a story where he had been called out of class or Dad's office there in the field house, and how he was on there, and Ms. Emily Foster told him to sit there quietly while Coach Jordan was on the phone. And he got off, called Jackie into his office, and he said, "Jackie," he said, "were you at Grave Center Chow Hall last night?" Jackie said, "Yes, sir, Coach, I was there." He said, "You want to tell me what happened over there last night? Because they're still cleaning food off the walls and picking up broken up furniture." And he said, "I took one look at your daddy and I already knew that he knew everything that happened at Grave Center Chow Hall, and that there was no point in me doing anything other than keeping eye contact and telling him exactly what I knew." And that's just the kind of person he was. He demanded that respect, wanted that level of trust in you. He had it in him, like the phones. I sat in this stadium with him one day and watched him practice, get ready for 72 season. I saw him get the ball to Terry Henley from the 25-yard line in until none of them could get up off the ground anymore. And everybody on the field knew exactly what the play was going to be, defense, offense. And when finally they couldn't get up, he dismissed them and he said, "It's all about putting the bottom in the boat." These guys have got to believe in themselves, because when they hit the field, it's small. They don't know what it takes to win when it's confident. And he told me, and that daughter that was sitting out there was born 10 weeks premature down in Montgomery. Driving back from Montgomery that night after she was born, that I said something like that. I said, "I think this is a tough situation." And he said, "Let me tell you, life's about making the best out of a bad situation." I just learned that right now. And it's spoken from somebody who did land at D-Day and did 4 other invasions, including Okinawa when he thought he was coming home. And so, you know, anything that he told me, I took to heart, because I knew he'd been there and he'd done it. And so on behalf of the whole family, I just want to say how much we appreciate this recognition. I can't say enough great things about the Hare family. I've known most all of them, at least the ones that were my age, their dad, Joe. I knew Susan McGee's mom, who's Phil Hare. Suggs, who was one of my mother's best friends.
Coach Dye, he grew up 5 miles from my farm in East Georgia, across Briar Creek. He and I had many mornings of conversation. One of the last times I saw Coach, I ran into him out here at Walmart. He and I both get up early in the morning. It was probably about 6 o'clock here. And I ran into him in Walmart. He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I just come out here to get some coffee and some milk." He said, "Come on down here and help me. I need some help." And I carried 25 pounds of dog food out there. 25 bags of dog food. But he was a great man, a great Auburn man. Of course, played at Georgia. Coach and I were talking about it just a minute ago. I was born in Athens. Wally and Winnie Butts were my godparents. And I tell all my Georgia friends, I said most of them didn't go to Athens or didn't go to university. A lot of them did, Spike Jones being one. That, Auburn and Georgia people have that common bond. And we can't lose that. We can't lose that as fans, as alumni. We've got to maintain this tradition and play good, clean, athletic competition and try to be friends at the end of the day. And that's what I think he would have wanted. I think that's what Coach Dooley wants. I think that's what anybody that's ever played the game been out here on this to happen. So appreciate everybody coming out today. Thank you for the recognition. On behalf of the family, we appreciate the deal. Warrior.
The two-time All-American at the University of Georgia, Pat Dye was the SEC Lineman of the Year in 1960. In 1981, he became Auburn's head football coach, leading the program to 4 Southeastern Conference championships in the 80s. In 12 seasons on the Plains, Coach Dye's teams won 99 games. As athletic director, he oversaw the expansion of Jordan-Hare Stadium and brought the Iron Bowl to Auburn's campus, leading a successful campaign to move the in-state rivalry to the Plains. In 2005, Coach Dye was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. That same year, Auburn named its playing surface Pat Dye Field in his honor. Following his retirement, Coach Dye remained a revered figure on campus, attending games and practices, supporting coaches and student athletes from all Auburn sports. Now for remarks about Coach Dye and his legacy, Heisman Trophy winner, Bo Jackson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.
And to the Georgia fans, welcome. I come home in high school one evening and walk through my front door to go downstairs to wash my baseball uniform. I look to the right where our dining room was. See 2 white men sitting at the table having coffee with my mother. I said, "Go downstairs to wash my uniform because I got a game the next day." This gentleman walks out as I'm putting my uniform in the washer, listening to him go in the washer, and he come out and say, "Vincent?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "My name is Coach Dye." I didn't know the man, never heard of him. And he said, "I'm the coach. I'm the new head coach at Auburn University." He said, "If I had to put a starting backfield on the field tomorrow," he said, "I'm going to tell you the 3 running backs that I'll put on the field." He said, "My fullback is a bona fide fullback. He's 5'10", about 300 pounds, bowling ball, Ron O'Neal." He said, "One half, because we ran out of the wishbone." He said, "One half back, about 185 pounds with all his pads on, Lionel James."
Little Frank.
He said, "My other halfback is 6'6", 180 pounds with all his pads on." That was a split in Mike Edwards, who was a converted down to be the other halfback. And he said, "That's my starting backfield for next year." And he said, "This year, my job is to recruit and hopefully sign about 11 other running backs." And I'm like, man. I continued to listen to him. But one thing that he said that nobody else said to me, and I could have gone anywhere in the country I wanted to, but he was the only man that said this. He said, if you come to Auburn, at that time, I've never been to Auburn, didn't know where Auburn was. He said, if you were to come to Auburn, I promise you that I will give you every opportunity on the planet to be a starter next year. And he did. That's all I needed to hear from anybody. Because I knew what I could do. Nobody else did. And he said that to me, and that opened my eyes and made me believe in that man. And that was my first experience with communicating with someone with a lot of character. I came here, did what I had to do, and the rest is history. But the thing that I say, and not just me, but all of the players that have played for this man, all of the coaches that have coached under him, is that one thing that oozed from his pores is character. I said this last year at his service to his kids, to Wanda, Missy, and Pat Jr. I said, I have a selfish kind of guilty feeling because not only me, but all of the players that your dad coached, we all feel like we stole a part of him from you all because he just wasn't our coach. He was our dad also. And he wasn't afraid to say, you break my rules? He said, I'm gonna put you on the bus and send you home. And we witnessed that a couple of times. He wasn't lying, that's character. If he said that he was gonna do something, he did it. Until this day, those are some of the things that I practice in my life. Because when I left home to come here, he became my dad. He became my father. And there isn't a day that go by that I don't think about that man. I'm not afraid to say, as a strong, unselfish person myself, I'm not afraid to say that I love another man. Because he taught me not only the things that you all see me do out on the field, or any of my other teammates, Chris Woods, we got Eddie Graham here, and so forth and so on, but he taught us how to be respectable adults. And if we didn't play by his rules, we weren't on the team. That's just the bottom line. That's just the bottom line. So when somebody speaks the word character, that man, Coach Scott, is the person that I think about most. He is the person that I emulate most. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know. And this last thing that I'll say. My junior year here at Auburn, I borrowed Chris Woods' yellow 1976 Monte Carlo. Remember that car, Chris? Went up here to the corner store, I forget the name of it, to get laundry detergent to do my laundry. I walk out of the store and the gentleman walks up to me. Who he was, suit, called me by my name, and I look at him as I'm walking to the car. He said, can I speak to you for a second? And I listened to him, and he said, I forget this guy's name. This was the time the USFL teams were out. And he said to me, the owner of such and such team, I don't know who it is, I can't think of it to save my life, but he said, the owner wants to know, if you tell me right now that you'll forego your senior year to come and play for the USFL team, he said he wants to give you this as a gift. And he presented me with a check for $5 million.
Holy smokes.
And I looked at it.
That's a lot of zeros.
And I looked back at him and I said these words. Not because I didn't need the money. I need the money like a mother. But because of his coaching, Coach Dye's character, I thought about all the things that I could have done with $5 million. And then I thought about this. I said, Coach Dye wouldn't do this. Coach Dye wouldn't do this to me. I'm not going to do it to Coach Dye. I'm not going to hightail it and leave my teammates. I said, I'm not going to leave the fans at Auburn because they have faith in me. They got faith in this team. And if I'm going to be a part of this family, I got to do what I got to think is right. And I looked at that man and I said these words. I said, I don't want that. And it's not because I didn't need it. It was because I was trying to practice that character that Coach Dye was trying to instill in us as players. Yes, he was a good coach, but with all of that coaching experience, he was also teaching us how to be young men, responsible men, teaching us how once we've gone down this road and stepped off that path to be a family man, to be a business person, always know one thing, is always make sure that people look at you with the utmost respect. And in order to get that from anybody, you have to show them tremendous character. And I always strive to do that. The reason that I'm here today is because of that man. The other two gentlemen, statues here, Coach Dye, they cultivated all of this, what you see. It's because of these three gentlemen that we can be entertained in this building. It's because of these three gentlemen that this campus looks like it is. This campus is voted annually the best looking college campus in the Southeast. It's because of these gentlemen that we're able to enjoy sports on the other side of these walls like no other college in the country. It's because of these gentlemen that there's thousands and thousands of men out there that are trying to follow in these men's footsteps. And we should be as lucky as them because they have done this for us, and it's our job to continue the seeds that they planted in us. Thank you. God bless and Warrior.
Now to unveil the statue of Pat Dye Jr.
Are you still here? I can follow that. Warrior.
Where you go?
I'm an attorney, so I always prepare for court. I got notes. Hopefully, will keep me on the rails here. First thing I'd like to do is thank Dr. Googe, Alan Green, board of trustees, and particularly Gene, because I know he was extremely instrumental in this day, statues, and this event. Appreciate everything you've done for Auburn, the support you've given Auburn. I also really appreciate you being a great friend for a long time with my dad. He loved you like a brother. I didn't know that Coach Dooley was going to get mentioned earlier, but got to recognize two of our own, Coach Dooley and Barbara Dooley, both graduated from Auburn. And I know there are other celebrities here that I didn't get to see, but one I did see walking in, almost just jaw dropping. Gene Stallings is here today.
Wow.
And Coach, I know y'all go back to, Coach Bryant and have that in common, but my dad loved you like a brother too, even though y'all don't so feel from each other. I don't know if he's here, but I was told that Josh Brooks, the athletic director, Georgia, Josh, super classy gesture to show up here. A couple things. Really appreciate you and Greg and Garrity at the university having the tribute for my dad before the first game of the season last year, and moment of silence and all that. That meant a lot to me, meant a lot to our family. And Dad ended up being an Auburn man, but he was also a damn good dog. I want to congratulate the Hares and the Jordans, for such richly deserved honor. My dad loved Auburn history, loved the men and women that made this place what it is, and he was so honored when he learned that he was going to be standing up here until the end of time. These two true pillars of Auburn University history. I'm going to be up front and say, if I talk too long, and or I get my dad, I come by it naturally. Brought a bucket of tears this week. Just thinking about the event, preparing for this, and hopefully I'll get through it without any tears. Our family's loss of my dad, the Auburn family's loss of my dad, is still fresh. And Alan Green and I talked several times about trying to do some sort of public service memorial, and where players and fans and everybody can come to honor him. And fortunately, literally, as God is my witness, the last time, moment, day, whatever you want to call it, that I spent with my father was May of 2020, about a week before he passed away. And I had gone through the internet and picked several, I don't know, I probably narrowed it down to 5 or 6 pictures that we would use to base the statue on. And so glad that we had an opportunity to sit down and look at those and pick one out. And so glad he had a hand in choosing how he was going to be depicted forever, here on this campus. And I'm so grateful that he knew before he passed away that he was going to be honored like this, in such a permanent, in such a prominent way. And sadly, between the time he found out and the time he passed, he said several times to me, I just hope I live to see that day. And so, sorry. As I was collecting my thoughts on what to say up here today, I thought about who would Dad thank. I think he would thank his family, his parents, his siblings, his children, Um, he would thank my mom. For a nearly 50-year relationship, a nearly 40-year marriage, raising 4 kids practically by herself because of his career and the demands on his time because of his career, and being there for him, and, you know, emotional support, and just, y'all know, I mean, every great man is a strong woman. So I know he would thank her. He'd also thank Nancy McDonald, his girlfriend, companion, best friend, whatever, for the last 20 or so years. They had a great relationship, and glad that, you know, Dad found her, you know, down the stretch. They had so much in common. He would thank his high school and college teammates, coaches. He'd thank Coach Bryant for giving him his first coaching job, giving him an opportunity to start his career, letting him watch the linebackers, as Coach Brooks said. Yeah. He would thank East Carolina for giving him his first head coaching job, and as he said, if y'all got guts enough to hire me, I've got guts enough to come. He would thank Bobby Louder and the Board of Trustees and Dr. Funderburg that were so instrumental in hiring him. It's ironic that Coach Dooley's here because he would thank Coach Dooley for turning the job down. The good news was I was a freshman at Georgia, and if you were coming here, he was coming to Georgia to be the head coach. So everything has a way of working out. Dad would thank all of his great players, too many to name, all of his great players, coaches, administrators that helped him be successful, not only at Auburn, but the other places he was. He would thank Coach Bowden, Terry Bowden, Coach Tuberville, Coach Chiswick, Malzahn, Rodney Garner, Joe Witt for letting him come and hang out, watch practice, hang out in the building, watch tape with him. And I'm absolutely convinced that it added 10 years to his life. That's what he lived for, is being out there and even being around the young men. And here's an 80-year-old man talking to 18-year-olds, and they loved him. He just had an unbelievable, uncanny ability to relate to them. Bo, he would thank you for believing in him, believing in Auburn, when it would have been a hell of a lot easier for you to go somewhere that had beaten Auburn for 9 straight years before you got here. As he said, when people hope. And I personally think it's pretty cool that my dad coached, and I was a classmate with not only the greatest football player in Auburn history, but the greatest athlete in American history. He loved you like a son till the end. And as you shared with me, yours was the last voice he heard before he passed away. Dad would also thank the fans, great Auburn family, for your spirited and unwavering support and your continued adoration, appreciation, and honor of him for nearly 30 years of retirement. Dad used to say, and I'm sure Bo's heard this, and whatever other players are here, he said this a million times, in the locker room, after wins and even losses. I ain't smart enough to tell you how much you mean to me. Well, I'm going to say I'm not eloquent enough to articulate to you what this day and this statue meant to my dad and means to our family. The man has been inducted to so many Hall of Fames, National Coach of the Year, SEC Coach of the Year. I can't keep up with them all. I mean, since he's passed, I mean, we've got trophies and plaques. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's everything. But this man is so humble. He never told me about any of them. Not even the College Football Hall of Fame. I'd read about it or hear about it. That's how humble he was. The only 2 times he's ever called me about an award or an honor or a recognition was in 2005 when they told him they were naming the field Pat Dye Field. And I guess it would have been fall of 2019. He called me immediately after learning they were going to erect this statue. I think that's a direct reflection of how deep his love was for Auburn and what Auburn meant to him. Ironically, in 1980, I was a freshman at the University of Georgia. Pretty good year when I coached. I had a friend athlete, decent running back himself, Herschel Walker. So I was named head coach after Coach Dooley turned it down in January of '81, and I finished my freshman year at Georgia and transferred to Auburn. And after spending about a month on campus and being around in the facilities, the stadium, whatever, I said, Dad, these buildings, facilities, and stadium are kind of run down. Yeah. And Dad, as only Dad would say, boy, it ain't about the buildings, it's about the people in the buildings. So the next 12 years, he stood on the shoulders of Auburn Giants, Dr. George Petrie, Dr. Hare, Coach Jordan, Pat Sullivan. He walked arm in arm for 12 years with great players and coaches, most notably Bo Jackson. Student athletes while he was athletic director, Charles Barkley and Frank Thomas. And he had the guts to take on the state legislature in the city of Birmingham and move the Alabama game to Auburn. Together with these great men and these events, he changed the way Auburn people thought about themselves, the way Auburn people thought about Auburn, the way the state of Alabama thought about Auburn, and the way this nation perceived Auburn. And look at our buildings and our statues now. In closing, as I said, Dad loved Auburn history and the forefathers and foremothers, if I could say such a word, the women that helped build Auburn. And he absolutely treasured Dr. George Petrie's Auburn Creed. And on this day, I thought it was only fitting to extract a few boulders, not nuggets, but a few boulders from the Auburn Creed. And I will say to you, Patrick Fain Dye believed in work, hard work. He believed in honesty. He had a spirit that was not afraid. He believed in the human touch. He walked humbly. He believed in Auburn, and he loved it. I want to thank everybody again. It's here, supported us, him, and all the people that made this day possible. God bless Auburn, God bless America, and War Eagle.
War Eagle!
Thanks, Matt. Thank all the family members and speakers for the stories. You know, Georgia's been mentioned a few times. It obviously is no coincidence that we chose this weekend to do the statue ceremony, as we have so many intersections with the University of Georgia, and we're family. We both want to win tomorrow, but we still are joined together in many ways, and we appreciate the representatives from Georgia that are with us today. So as we conclude, a couple things. One is, I will tell you for sure, Coach Jordan and Coach Dye would tell you there's not a legendary coach alive that does not have legendary players. So when we conclude, Alan Green is inviting any former player of Coach Dye or Coach Jordan that are here to meet him in the recruiting lounge for a little celebratory toast. There are those who were invited, the families that all were invited here today. You're also invited to the Fridays on the 50 event. You just go up the hill around to the east elevator, Neville lobby, and up to the club level, and that event will be starting in about 3 minutes. For the families, we would like for you to come up after we conclude. Our photographer will be here to take pictures of the families and the statues. And I would just leave everybody with this, a kind of a challenge for all of us. I think something to make these three men proud, the way they live their lives, and if we could try to make Auburn a little better today than it was yesterday, make it better tomorrow than it is today, they would be very proud of all of us. Thank you for coming, War Eagle.